So much to talk about as we really kick off the clay court season in Monte Carlo. And you Raw fans, this episode goes out to you Raw fans out there because most of this stack of information we have here is all about Rafa Nadal. Vamos! Ollie Payton over in the UK is going to love today's show. But everyone who loves tennis should love today's show because today, on the show, we'll talk about how a very emotional Rafa Nadal was, he didn't say it, but we shall assume, brought to tears by Tiger Woods' Masters win. Also, why did Uncle Tony, of all people, have to apologize to Rafa? We'll talk about Novak Djokovic's Monte Carlo beginning being a total failure, and he hasn't even played a match yet in singles. Speaking of failure, El Chapo, he's out in the first round. In fact, they're replaying it on Tennis Channel right now, and he threw his racket 47 minutes in. Oh, no wonder he had chances to break it 5-4. Yeah, he won the first set anyways. He lost anyways. Well, also, towards the end of the show, we'll talk about Janko Tipsarevic's interview on the Tennis Podcast. I had 5 things I took away from that. I think it was an hour-long interview, and 5 things I took out that stuck out to me that I wrote down to talk about on today's show. And also, my favorite tennis player has started practicing on the clay. All that and much more on today's Coffee Break Tennis. Now, the quest for greatness, the pursuit of happiness, of greatness. This is something most of us love, although some haters out there don't love it so much. Who loves it even more than most of us mere mortals, normal people? The great ones themselves. Rafa Nadal says Tiger Woods is his favorite sportsman after Masters triumph. Rafa and Tiger have won 32 major honors between them in their respective career. Nadal says Tiger Woods' 5th Masters title left him that means he cried, very emotional at home, not in public like Roger does. Left him very emotional as he lauded his favorite sportsman in the world for his determination to return to the top once again. No one appreciates this stuff more than the greats who have already done it. We've heard Rafa's toast, then he comes back and wins. We've heard Roger's toast, then he comes back and wins. By all accounts, it looks like right now Serena Williams is toast. Maybe she will come back and win. She's another who's, I think didn't she say she was brought to tears by Tiger Woods' win? One of my personal friends, B Money, a great sportsman himself, he said he was crying like a baby. But Rafa Nadal, me and him, we're almost, I think I'm 3 months older than Rafa. So basically, we're the same age. Me and Rafa, we remember in the 90s. We remember Tiger, this young kid, doing crazy things, being talked about a lot, like Michael Jordan. Roger Federer himself actually talks a lot about being inspired by Michael Jordan when he was younger, despite it being a totally different sport. We heard all about Michael Jordan. We heard about Mike Tyson. He was pretty unstoppable for a little bit. I remember that. And then we also had Tiger Woods. These guys were larger than life. And so when me and Rafa look back, we remember this Tiger, who looks a little different than the Tiger today. A lot less hair, but not so different the way he handled those. I only watched the last 4 holes. But anyways, it was good stuff. This is a tennis show, so we're not going to get into the golf so much. But I thought it was so interesting to see someone who's accomplished so much be so inspired and so emotional, as Nadal put it, to see someone else doing great things in their sport. Plus, there's something to be said for these comebacks. One of the things I put out there, I tweeted out, which comeback is better? Roger Federer's 2017 win over Rafa in the Australian Open final, or this one? Now, you could argue Tiger came from a lot further down. Last time he won a major was 2008. So I think there's a strong case. Some people say, golf is for old people. But I don't know. You look at who's been winning in golf lately, and they're not always so old. But for me, I like this tweet from our number 1 RF with a goat on it at Tennis Digits. I'm sorry, but 18th Grand Slam won by Roger Federer and beating his biggest rival, Rafa Nadal, was the greatest comeback ever. So I'm a little biased, being the original Fedhead, the ultimate king of the Fedheads. But I think that is what makes Roger's comeback still a little bit greater, because he did it over Rafa down a break in the 5th set. Rafa said, "It has been amazing. I've said it hundreds of times. He's probably my favorite sportsman in the world since a long, long time ago. It has been some tough years for him. I can't be more happy about the victory of yesterday. You imagine all the processes, I'm told, all that they had to do to get back on the golf course. It is so difficult. So Rafa is impressed. And Rafa, if you think about it, is in the middle of his own little comeback. We haven't seen him since the Indian Wells semifinal where he was supposed to play Roger Federer, who used to be always compared to Tiger. Him and Tiger were supposed to be best friends, although that was more of a marketing thing because they did the Gillette commercials together and all that kind of stuff. But it was Rafa, really, who had Tiger sitting in his box 2017 at the U.S. Open. Don't forget that. And Roger, maybe I missed it. Maybe he's congratulated Tiger at some point. But look what he posted when the Masters started. He's in the Adam Scott camp. Comment below what that's all about. I don't know. I'm not going to say anything. Oh, before we get to the Uncle Tony business about Rafa, real quick, take a listen to what Roger Federer said on his INSTANTgram.
Hello, everybody. So this was my first clay court hit of the season, of last season, of the season before. So anyway, it was good. I enjoyed it. Had a great time, and I'll post a video tomorrow when I'm hitting again. So here we go. Look at this. All right, take care, everybody.
Roger's ready for the clay. He's already practicing on the clay. He said he's going to put out a video of him hitting on the clay and what it looks like. But if you want to know what Roger's going to look like on clay, not in his practice session, but actually in real matches, and don't worry, we'll keep going with the stack of news stuff here, all you Raw fans. But let me just say this really quick. Grigor Dimitrov the other day, he beat this guy, I think he's 23 years old, not exactly a next-genner, but a younger guy, Matteo Berrettini, Italian guy from Rome. And despite some terrible serving from Grigor, lots of double faulting, lots of throw the stats on the screen. I'm not going to take the time to look at it or talk about it, just for your benefit. It'll be on the screen. Mr. Goat via satellite remote upstairs will do that. You'll see on the screen. I want to say that Grigor had a lot of double faults, just not great serving, but playing the baseline very closely, taking the ball pretty early, and doing what you're going to see Roger do on the clay court. And it works well. If you can consistently take that ball early on the clay, it's as effective on clay as it is anywhere else. It's always a great way to play. It's just very hard to do. So we'll watch Grigor. Who does he have up next, by the way? Got my draw here. So Grigor was probably going to have to play El Chapo, most people would have thought. But El Chapo is out, of course, to the big, tall monster, Jan-Lennard Struff aus Deutschland. And Grigor will have to play Struff next. If he gets through that, Grigor gets Roberto Bautista Agut or Rafa Nadal. Now, we've seen Struff give Roger a tough match in the past. He very well could beat Grigor Dimitrov, but definitely watch that match. If you want to see how the take the ball early from the baseline, more attacking style of play works out on the clay, watch Grigor Dimitrov very closely. I still, even though he loses all the time, even though he's been struggling, I'm always going to enjoy watching Grigor Dimitrov because of the way he attempts to play the game. Janko Tipsarevic, who we'll talk about later in the show today, he does the same thing, and I'm really skipping ahead, but to me, one of the best things from that whole tennis podcast interview with Janko Tipsarevic, he said that he learned from watching Roger Federer, this latest version of Roger Federer, which is even more aggressive. And that's how he has to play his game now. Because the thing about Janko Tipsarevic, he's always been able to play an aggressive take-the-ball-early game, but then he was also athletic enough to drop back way behind the baseline and play way more defensive and just grind you out. And he said that's the difference in his game today because of all the issues he's had with his knees and surgeries and all that. He says that he doesn't want to play that game anymore. He can't trust his body to do it. So he doesn't have a plan B anymore. And he said he learned this watching Federer succeed in the last couple years because his Federer is the same way. He's lost his plan B. He can only play the close to the baseline, all-out attack. And he said in the past, you would see Roger drop back after a little bit of a struggle, a couple of games, not playing well, a couple of misses. Against Rafa in particular, Janko said, you would see Roger drop back and then Rafa would totally take over. Because once you give up that ground, you have no chance against some players, Rafa being one of them. Maybe a lesser player, you can grind it out. We've seen Roger do that. He said now Roger doesn't have that plan B because he knows he's just going to get worn down at his age, and he's not going to play that way. He's just going to step in. And he says he thinks, like him, Roger enjoys this so much more and is just having more fun on the court. I think it's a pretty good explanation, pretty good analysis from old Janko Tipsarevic. Anyways, watch Grigor very closely. That is a match we will have tomorrow, I believe. Of course, we'll have to see Djokovic play the cult pickle, Philip Kohlschreiber is back, baby, to play Djokovic again after beating him at Indian Wells. Djokovic lost to Bautista Agut twice this year. Somebody tweeted to me, Matt, they say things come in threes, but I think these things come in twos. 2 losses to Agut and maybe 2 losses to the Kaltenpickel. So watch that match carefully. A couple more matches that we have on tomorrow that we got to look out for. I think Mr. Munar, who just took out Sasha Zverev and Metakesh, believe tomorrow he will be playing Borna Coric, if not tomorrow, then the next day. And to me, the most important match tomorrow, other than Djokovic and the Kaltenpickel, probably going to be Juan Ignacio Londero versus Felix Auger-Aliassime on, I believe, the second court, 5 a.m. East Coast time, so I will not be watching it live, but I'll be watching the replay to see what happens there. A couple things about Juan Ignacio Londero, because I'm sure most of you have never heard of him. This guy's played a lot of clay, smaller tournaments that most people don't watch, pay attention to throughout the year. The guy's pretty much only been on clay all year long. I mean, he did play Miami Indian Wells. He won. Where did he win? He won the Cordoba Open, beating people like Mr. Jerry Sonego, who I believe already lost in Monte Carlo, Delbonis, another Argentinian guy named Kachin. I've never heard of him. Cordoba is in Argentina. That's why he's got 4 different matches against Argentinian guys here. And he is himself an Argentine. And in the final, he beat Guido Pella, who beat Laszlo Jerry, however you pronounce it. Jerry's a guy who stopped Felix Auger 2 times on the clay right before they went to Indian Wells in Miami. So it's by no means an easy match tomorrow for Felix Auger-Aliassime. But if Felix Auger is able to get through that, we will get our a very nice second round matchup on Wednesday. Also, the same day we'll get Nadal and Bautista Agut. We will get Sasha Zverev against Mr. Londero. All right, so back to the tennis news articles. Uncle Tony apologized to Rafa Nadal for injured person playing tennis comments. Uncle Tony told El País, how do you say that? Rafa wants to continue playing despite his physical problems. This is what will continue to be decisive. Until then, who knows? Maybe 2 or 3 more years. What I'm saying is that Rafa is not a tennis player. He's an injured person who plays tennis, and that's very difficult. Now, I don't think there's anything too bad about what Uncle Tony said. But I don't think there's anything too wrong with what Uncle Tony said. But Rafa, when asked about it in the Monte Carlo presser, well, I guess it was media day. He hasn't played a match yet, but he was talking to somebody in Monte Carlo. He said he apologized to me. He came to the court and felt sorry for that. Tony wanted to say it in a positive way because, of course, I had many, many issues. And he said it was a lot of value, what he is doing for all the problems that he had. But it's not about the interview. Tony has conferences for companies every week. You talk a lot. Sometimes you make mistakes. Almost sounded like Fabio Fognini more than Rafa there. But Rafa, great point. Great point from Rafa. When you talk a lot, sometimes you'll say something kind of dumb or not even that bad. Something that's not that bad but can be taken out of context and look really bad. Hey, trust me, I know. I talk a lot right into here. Sometimes I say some dumb stuff too. So no hard feelings against Uncle Tony. My big question, Rafa, so emotional watching Tiger come back. And Rafa, able to identify with that. Rafa's had to come back from so many injuries. Where's Rafa today? Where's Djokovic mentally? Where's Rafa physically? These are the biggest questions of the 2019 Monte Carlo Rolex Masters. This is from AFP.com, a lady named Valerie Hatche. 32-year-old Spaniard whose bad knees and constant stoppages from competition have defined his career as the king of clay. He was extremely hesitant to even rate his chances as he gets set to face Roberto Bautista Agut in Wednesday's second round start. I can't give you any feeling. It's been a rough year and a half for me. It's tough for me to get the clear view of how I am. It's all hard for me personally. So there you go. We've been here with Rafa for a long time. Rafa can't even practice the way he likes to know quite where he is physically. Can't blame him. It's got to be pretty scary to know if you work too hard on your game, you're going to be injured, you're going to have to skip tournaments. And as Miss Valerie Hatche points out, Nadal has a vast number of ranking points to defend on clay after lifting titles in a spectacular 2018 run at Monte Carlo, Barcelona, Rome, Roland Garros. His only other trophy during a season in which he did not play at all after the U.S. Open came on hard courts of Toronto, where he beat young gun Stefanos Tsitsipas. translation, Rafa has a ton of points to defend, and they're all right here. Without the without the king of clay swing, the king swing for Rafa, if he doesn't win almost everything, his ranking will drop a lot. And then he's got some U.S. What was it? Quarterfinal or semifinal where he lost? Semifinal, right? Yeah. Juan Martín del Potro beat him in the semifinal. So he's got semifinal points at the U.S. Open, and then he's got his Canada Masters win over Stefanos Tsitsipas. That's it. That's what comprises the number 2 player in the world's ranking. Now, he's got the finals at the Australian Open. That's a nice big chunk there, too. But other than that, he's just got his clay, and he's got his U.S. Open semifinals, and he's got his win in Canada. So Rafa could, the big picture could change for Rafa quite a bit if he doesn't, I don't know. We're so used to, for years, just predicting Rafa's going to win all the clay like he does all the time. That has got to be so much pressure on Rafa, and maybe a small part of why he was so emotional watching Tiger Woods. Serbia's Novak Djokovic and Marco Polo, have exited the Monte Carlo Masters doubles event. The Djokovic brothers stood no chance against the number 4 seeds. This is from Zvevad Mezic, tennisworld.usa. Djokovic bros, they're like the Mario Bros. The Joker bros suffer heavy loss in doubles. Openers, the name of this article, the headline, I mean. They stood no chance against number 4 seeds Juan Sebastian Cabal and Robert Farah, as the Colombia claimed a 6-1, 6-3 win over the Jokers. No shock there. Nice of a Joker to get his brother involved and play a doubles match. But I will say this, it's not ideal for Djokovic to come in there and have a disappointment right away. I'm sure he doesn't care too much about winning the doubles, but as he said before, I don't remember exactly what Djokovic said, but in interviews he's talked about the struggles his brother went through trying to play singles pro tennis, and didn't go very well for Marco Djokovic. Novak has made comments in the past about how hard it was for him to see his brother struggle like that. So being up close and personal with this at the very beginning of the tournament, it can't be a great way to start. And then tomorrow, he's got to play the Cult Pickle, who just beat him not that long ago. I mean, it's not an ideal start. But Djokovic, I mean, he's one of the greatest of all time. He should be able to get through his match, we would think. I won't bet against him, but I will watch the match tomorrow with my eyes wide open. Very curious. Also, Bulgarian Grigor Dimitrov and Swiss Stanislav Wawrinka also concluded their doubles campaign as they lost the 6 seeds, Henry Continent and John Peers, 7-6, 6-3. Also, singles players playing doubles, a different story. 2 more brothers, Sasha and Misha Zverev, will be continuing their Monte Carlo doubles campaign as they came from a set down, and man, they looked dead in the water. I want to say did they win 6 games in a row? Little Shorty D just did it. That match just ended not too long ago. And Miami Mania, they're showing a graphic on El Chapo. It's run in Miami. Anyways, we just saw Shorty D was down a set 3-0. Then when it was 3-1, Edmund was serving 3-1 30 love. Should have got the 4-1 at least. Instead, Shorty D wins 6 games in a row. Then he wins the third set. So that's 12 out of 13 games. 6-1 in the third. I guess they did that too, because I could have sworn that I saw that score down a set 4-0 for Misha and Sasha. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but they won 6-4, 10-7 in the third set tiebreaker. And these 2 guys from Monaco, Romain Arnedo and Hugo Nice. Oh, here you go. They appeared to be heading towards a straight set win. Then they blew a 4-2 second set lead as Zverev won 4 games in a row to seal the set, force a decider. Anything can happen as a tiebreaker. Zverev won 84% of their first serve points, broke their opponents twice, but also lost their serve twice in an hour and 13 minutes of play. So there's your doubles update. Hope you found it enthralling. Not much headroom up there. When you got a big serve like Sasha Zverev, big forehand like Sasha Zverev, height, even though he's not a good net player, he's got the height and the length of the arms. And then you got a guy like Misha Zverev who's got great serve and volley, great volley. They should be able to win in doubles. So good news for them. And if I'm going to say that maybe Djokovic and his brother having such a horrible experience is not going to help Djokovic with his singles campaign, maybe starting with a lot of fun, a win with you and your older brother, maybe that'll help Sasha get a little smile on his face and kind of end the slump. We'll see. If he has to play Felix Auger-Aliassime, hard to predict that one. What else do we got? Shapo, he's out. Shapo news is he's got a new coach. After Miami, where he reached the semis, El Shapo appeared to have split from his previous coach, Rob Steckley. The switch comes just as Shapo is broken in the top 20 in the rankings, despite a so-so start that saw him go 9-6 the season before Miami and fall 6-0 bagel to Novak Djokovic in the fourth round of the Australian Open. Fourth set and fourth round, I believe. Article's confusing. Tennis.com. This is from Matt Cronin. Fellow Canadian Fuoriva, who coached Shapo to the 2016 junior boys singles at Wimbledon, is now the coach. Shapo begins his clay campaign with some momentum and a little history of success on the surface. Clearly, this article was written before his loss in the first round of Monte Carlo. A couple more things and we'll get out of here. This is from tennis-x.com. The Monte Carlo draw is a joke, says Dominic Thiem. In his first clay Masters as a champion at this level, as in he beat Federer in Indian Wells, Dominic Thiem aus Österreich is hopeful of another great clay season starting this week in Monte Carlo. Asked about his expectations when he starts the clay season, because remember, he's kind of like Rafa. He wants to make most of his points and money on the clay. That's where he's most comfortable. Dominic Thiem said, "The draw is a joke. It is sehr schwer. In general, the level of men's tennis pretty high at the moment. I think an Allermann has to be full power on from the erster point of every match. Myself as well. That is what I'll try, and I hope gute Spielzeuge are coming in this clay court season. Ich denke that as long as Rafa is spielen, he'll always be the top favorite for any clay court title, aber I think that there are more serious challenges to him than in the past Jahren. Sasha alles, Novak, back on top of his game, and I hope mich. There are really young guys like Felix. Ich denke he likes the clay a lot. He played amazing in Miami and also the very youngen Gungan. Like Stefanos, Shapo, the many challenges for Rafa." Team's joke of a draw sees him face Marty Klizan in his opener, then David Goffin, Karen Kakanaf in the quarters, Joker possibly in the semifinals. So Dominic Thiem, the other king of clay, the prince of clay. Watch out for that. Okay. A couple comments, then we'll talk about Tipsarevic, and then we'll get out of here. It's from Summer Desjardins. Rafa's health is so questionable. This could be a pick'em. I said last time I was ready to give up on Sasha, and I finally do, but I am not so sure Lindell will quit as his coach so fast. I still believe Sasha has a lot of talent, which he proved at the 2018 ATP Finals. Then you have Domastovic from Serbia. Djokovic will crush Rafa on the red dirt. The Pink Balloon says, "We will see. I think you're wrong. But even if Novak does beat Rafa, Nadal is and always will be the greatest clay court player of all time." Well, you can't take that away. That's true. Ninyad says, "Yes, but I think Novak will beat Rafa." Pink Balloon, "Well, we'll agree to disagree." This is a funny day, a funny show. Like Summer Desjardins, however you say it. Like, I assume it's a female. Like, she was saying, it's all about Rafa's health. You always pick him to win. This year, it's like, can he keep coming back from these health issues, from these disappointing results, although he had a great result at the Australian Open, but it did end with a beatdown from Novak Djokovic. With all these results being so disappointing, can we really expect Rafa to come back and win all the clay again? It's the big question. And what he does in Monte Carlo will set the tone for the rest of the clay court season. That's the big thing. If he has a disaster here, people are going to start abandoning Rafa on the winning the French, winning all the clay like he usually does this year. I think. I don't know. It won't be so sudden that everyone all of a sudden says Rafa has no chance, but everyone's going to acknowledge Rafa has a serious problem. If Rafa wins, everyone will assume that everything's going to be okay. If Rafa goes deep but has a crushing loss, like Ninyad says, to maybe Djokovic in the final, say Rafa loses straight sets in the final to Joker, again, people are going to be, well, I think we'll see a mix of things if that happens. Some people will say, like, oh, it's over for Rafa, and some other people will say, hey, what do you expect? He hasn't been able to play much. He's having to get healthy and rest the knee. He hasn't been able to practice the way he wants. He's going to work his way into fitness and clay court mastery by the time he gets to Paris, and he will win Roland Garros again. Alex72 says, Casper Ruud the boy. Remember the name, guys. Yeah, Casper Ruud, he was really good in Houston. I remember Casper Ruud from a couple years ago. I don't remember exactly what he did, but he had some good clay court results. I want to say maybe he beat David Ferrer as like a, what is he? He's 19, so he would have been 17 back then. So Casper Ruud, we've heard about him for a little bit the last couple years. He's been slowly sneaking up on us, and the result in Houston, great result. He's got a chance to make some noise. Sabrina Serif's born on the same day as Hitler. Monica, our Aussie friend that we love so much here at CBT. Tough draw for Rafa on clay. Really just means that he might actually lose a set somewhere. Yeah, that's what we've always thought forever with Rafa. And I still, until Rafa is knocked off his throne as king of clay, I'm going to give it to him too. All right, here's the stuff from Tipsarevic interview on the tennis podcast. If you haven't heard it, you don't even need to listen to it because I'm about to give you the whole freaking thing. I'm just kidding. It's a pretty good interview. You should listen to it. But here's my big takeaways. Number one, Andy Murray will be back and win slams. That is what we were told by Janko Tipsarevic. I know he's coming back from injury and he's seen it happen. But I don't know. What we've heard from doctors and people who know better, although we did see some hip success from the Bryan brothers, but from what we've heard, singles, it's a little different than doubles. It's going to be really hard for Andy Murray to have a chance to win, especially the way he plays. He relies on the move. I mean, everyone relies on movement in singles and tennis, but Andy Murray, the movement is like one of his main weapons. So right away, I don't know if he does. Wow, Tipsy, you called it, man, but I don't see that one. Number two, if Janko Tipsarevic could do it all over again. Remember, he was a successful junior. He failed in the pros early on. He would tell himself to live the tennis life and let it all consume you. He used the word cowardly, saying he was afraid to give up things in life to fully commit and see how good he really could be at tennis. He worked hard, but he didn't give it all. The big thing about that and they talked a little bit about David Law said, oh, so Nick Kyrgios, do you think this applies to him? And then they went into it, and then they basically kind of said something like, with Nick Kyrgios, it's more of a mental thing. And Tipsarevic did say kind of like what I said. I don't know if I was talking about Kyrgios, but I was talking about Fernando Verdasco's approach with, hey, I'm working hard enough. Let me just enjoy my life outside of tennis. I'm making good money. I'm doing pretty well. I'm happy with that. And Janko Tipsarevic basically said, look, does Kyrgios want to be number one in the world? Does he want to work harder for all those things? Or is he saying, hey, life's so short, I'm doing well enough, I'm making plenty of money from tennis, so maybe I'm going to enjoy some other parts of my life. So they talked about that. But the big thing for me was Janko said there was two players who are living the tennis way of life from the next gen. Only two who really stand out to him. Felix Auger-Aliassime, Stefanos Tsitsipas. Is there any coincidence that those are my two next gen picks to be the best of the next gen lot? You know, I think Tipsarevic said the truth is all those guys, Sasha Zverev, Shapo, all these next gen dudes, they'll win. Oh, you know, we didn't talk about Danny Medvedev today. He's looking really good. Watch out for Medvedev. He has to play Tsitsipas next. Of course, they have bad blood in Miami from last year. Could be a really interesting match tomorrow. So watch out. I think it's tomorrow or Wednesday. Whenever it is, watch out for that match. Anyways, Tsitsipas, Felix Auger, those are the two guys that are really living the fully committed tennis life. Think Djokovic. That's what he means by that. You know, change the diet, change everything to help your tennis. Ironically, Federer says he still has his gluten and eats it too. Number three, I learned a lot. I already talked about this. That's the stuff about Federer no longer has a plan B. Federer did this, enjoys tennis more than ever. Nadal used to take over, blah, blah, blah. We already talked about that. Number four, moving Wimbledon to another country. This is where they were talking about player unions and stuff like that. And my big takeaways from there, first, it was kind of laughable, and credit to David Law as the interviewer for kind of laughing at it for being like a little crazy. But I do understand where Tipsy is coming from. He's saying that basically whether they make a union or not, we need to have some real representation for the players. And they need to be bold enough to say, look, he even said the Queen's going to hear about this and find out they're only giving them 12% of the money that comes into Wimbledon every year to the players. And Tipsarevic was saying, look, if we threaten the players aren't going to play Wimbledon at Wimbledon anymore, we're going to move Wimbledon to China or somewhere, he said, move the Australian Open to China, move the French Open to Rome. He said these are the things these negotiators basically are going to have to be willing to put out there. And he said they need to know how to play poker. So basically bluff on moving Wimbledon to China. That kind of stuff. When David Law said, well, look, you guys make more money in the first round than you used to, than when you were in the top 10, Janko Tipsarevic. And Tipsy said, no. It's still 12%. Maybe the pot is bigger now because of guys like Rafa and Roger and Djokovic bring in more people. Maybe there's more money. So, yes, the first round losses, they get more money, but it's still 12%. It's still the same tiny cut. And then I did like the Tipsarevic, because my big thing with that is, one, because of the way antitrust laws work in most countries around the world, it's going to be really hard. Also, the way tennis is, because it's not like a league like the NBA or the NFL. Tennis is like a bunch of independent contractors. So it's really hard to turn that into a union somehow. And on top of that, my big thing is like, you don't want to piss off the tournaments because they are running a business. So Tipsarevic, he says this thing I'm about to tell you that I like, is, players only get 12%. Now, I'm not saying they have to get 50%, Tipsarevic admitted. Like, whatever is fair, whatever they determine is fair. Maybe 30% is fair, because I'm wondering, everyone should be wondering, if Wimbledon takes all the money they make during the tournament, 12% goes to men and women who play in the tournament, what percentage costs them to make Wimbledon happen, to put on the great show, right? They're having to pay a lot for security, lines people, all kinds of vendor. I mean, come on. I could go forever trying to think of all the different people that are employed by Wimbledon every year. What percentage of the money does that take? The electric bill, opening and closing the roof, the air conditioning, like what percentage of all the money that comes in every year is used just to run Wimbledon successfully, right? We might not like it if Wimbledon has to turn off some of the lights or something, although wasn't that the issue with Djokovic and Nadal's match? So they can't have the lights on and play too late. There was like a curfew. I don't know. Anyways, my point is, if it costs 40% of all the money that comes in every year and then 12 goes to the players, 52% of the money is gone right away. Wimbledon's only getting to keep less than half, 48 at that point. So we don't even know. It's kind of weird to say 12% is nothing when we don't even know what it costs to run the thing. And again, it's their business. It's their Wimbledon. But Janko has a good point. The only way you're going to change that is to say, well, you know what? Screw you, Wimbledon. We're going to have our own player-run Wimbledon somewhere else. So for what that's worth. And number 5, equal pay for equal earning. It was kind of interesting to see David Law get very uncomfortable when Tipsarevic said, look, if I told you we're going to make and he named some popular UK football team like Chelsea or I don't know. I don't know anything about soccer, football. But he said, if we're going to make a women's version of Manchester United or whatever the heck they're called, and we're going to pay them exactly what the men think, you'd laugh in my face, right? And David Law immediately was like, no, I don't think I would laugh in your face, sir. So it was a little confrontational in that moment. And Tipsarevic, David Law, the other thing he said, it's a systemic sexism in scheduling and marketing. Happy to see Janko call him out right away and say, what are you talking about, dude? Like, the show courts, the big tournaments, it's always a women's match and a men's match, at least in the night sessions. Maybe occasionally you'll have an extra men's or an extra women's. So I don't know David Law's argument there that the only reason why there isn't more demand, because Tipsarevic's argument is this: do the women deserve equal pay if the women's game doesn't sell tickets? Now, we know Serena matches probably sell a lot more tickets than Jan Leonard Struffy Struff, if I'm going to look at the TV right now. I mean, I'll put that on the screen. The Shapo and Struff match, it started off with a decent crowd. A lot of empty seats in Monte Carlo, although the final in Lugano, I know it's a small women's tournament in Switzerland. And the final, a couple of people that no one's heard of, maybe if Belinda Bencic was in the final, but the final was empty. There was like 50 people there in a final. Anyways, Janko is saying, if the women don't bring in as much money, why do they deserve to get an equal cut of it? It's not a bad argument. Now, there is a strong case to be made. I will say that over the years, sometimes the women's game is a little more popular than the men's. I don't know. I don't have the numbers in front of me. I haven't looked at it. That's what I've been told. I believe it. I'm sure there have been years where the stars of the women's tennis tour were better known and more marketable than the men's. David Law also said, well, they don't get marketed the same way. They don't put as much money into the women's game as the men's game. Maybe that's true, but I think they put all the money marketing into Roger and Rafa and Djokovic. Those are the big names. And Serena, you get to see Serena quite a bit too. You get 3 larger-than-life characters in the men's tour, and you got 1 on the women's tour right now. So I think that's a big part of you market what you got. Anyways, there you go. That's pretty much everything from there. I think the equal pay thing, it's working well enough. I think the 12% thing, it's working well enough. Does that mean we should just accept it? Should the players just accept it and never try to move forwards from that point? No, of course not. I'm not saying that at all. But really, what does anyone expect? Oh, there was another interesting thing, but the music's already playing. We got to get out of here. But one more thing Janko talked about was Djokovic really hates being the bad guy. My Djokovic theorem. It's true. It's true. He hates it. And part of why he's lost recently, he thinks, is because of being in the spotlight looking like he's the bad guy. And he says, really, Djokovic, you shouldn't even be on the player council. It's stupid. You're wasting time. Who cares? Sure, it's a great cause and all, but you're number one, Djokovic. Focus on just doing your Djokovic thing right now. Your career is finite. I think Janko has a pretty good point there. Anyways, make sure you watch the matches tomorrow. We will be back after we've seen Joker's first match and Rafa's first match. Tsitsipas versus Medvedev. Maybe Sasha Zverev versus Auger Aliassime. After those results are on the books, we will be right back, whatever day that may be. See ya!